Dr. Jazz.
Hey guys,
Dr.
Samo here.
Jazz.
Thanks for checking out the channel and its contents. And if you feel like it, please do subscribe. Thanks so much. Enjoy the video. Bye. Man, thanks for finding the time. Appreciate it.
Yeah, sure. Thanks for asking. That's great. Yeah,
Yeah,
I love your YouTube channel. It's amazing the amount of interviews you have up.
yeah, it's gotten out of hand, I'll put it this way, as my
Yeah,
wife would say. So it's like,
right.
but
But
no,
it's a really great archive, and I've just started going through different
yeah,
uh, people that you interviewed, and yeah, beautiful.
yeah. Thank you. I love doing this. It's just like you said, creating an archive. With I don't know. Beside being a musician, I'm a jazz fan as well. So I would love to hear. I don't know. Booker Little interview or whatever, or something like
Sure.
that, but doesn't exist. So maybe just in 20 years, people will be like, "Oh shit, John Goldsby. Okay, I have him on his CDs, so on my CD,
Right.
or all these amazing bass players I've talked to and saxophone players, and it's
Yeah, I was listening to Eric Rivas
oh
talk.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah, very, very interesting. I didn't know his whole story, but yeah,
yeah. I love this because each one of you, it's so much history there, right? Also,
yeah.
with you, I was listening. That's why I contacted you. I was listening to a Ken Peplowski record I have on a CD, Sunny Side, I think it's.
Sunnyside, right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and I was like, John Goldsby, oh man, okay. And I knew
Yeah.
you were in Germany for years already, and then I thought like, okay, well, let's contact you. And you have a new album out as well, so that's a really convenient
Right.
way. So
Yeah, I was playing with Ken a lot in New York in the 80s. And yeah, we did his first album, which was called Double Exposure.
oh yeah,
And then
exactly.
we did Sunnyside and then a few other things with different people.
Yeah, I love those records. He was so swinging, man.
Oh man, unbelievable. Did you
Such
ever play with him?
no, didn't have a chance, never.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, but such a great player, man. I mean, I have like 10 of his CDs, and it's.
Right.
But I want to start with big band bass. And it's so nice to see you in the foreground of that orchestra. I mean, you're always like the backbone. I've been that for 30 years, and now you're like really stepping up and having lots of solos and melodies and your music. And uh, I know it's like the 30th anniversary of you being in the band, right? That's why this project happened. But what's the story behind it? I mean, can you tell me a little bit more about it? And
Well, I joined the WDR Big Band in '94.
wow,
I moved from New York and thought, yeah, living in Europe would be a great idea. And yeah, so I really liked the job. And I don't know if you're familiar with these radio bands. I'm sure
yeah,
you
yeah,
are.
sure. We
Yeah.
have one in Slovenia as well, yeah,
Right.
which is
Yeah.
like yeah,
Yeah. But it's sort of, you go from one project to another project to another project. And I really love this, just so it's been 30 years of all kinds of, you know, s- from the sublime to the ridiculous. I mean,
yeah.
it's, great, great music and a lot of interesting guests to work with. So I retired from the band in 2024. So in December, and they
Okay.
said, okay, you're retiring, so let's do a feature project and you can do your own tunes. And some of them were already arranged, one by Michael Abini, one by a guy named Dave Horler,
Yeah.
uh, John LaBarbera arranged one tune, and then Bob Mincer, who was the main conductor with the big band, he arranged five of the tunes.
Okay.
And I played one original composition from Vince Mendoza that he wrote for me. So yeah, it's sort of a retrospective of a lot of the music I've done in the last decade or so. And it was just a celebration of me being in the band for that long. And it was a good way to say goodbye. I mean, I'm still playing and I'm doing all kinds of small group things now, but yeah, the big band thing was 30 years and
That's a
yeah,
lot.
felt like it had had a nice arc, and yeah, I was finished with it after that. So
Yeah. How come you decided initially to go to Europe? Because in New York, you were actually like really on the scene, playing with so many players, and was that like a? I mean, must have been like a huge step, right? From going from New York, being on the scene, and then going to Europe. What was the main
yeah,
trigger? I mean,
it was a gamble. I grew up in Louisville, Kentucky, which is a
yeah,
medium-sized city, and then moved to New York in 1980. So I was in New York for 14 years, almost 15 years, and I, I mean, I was fortunate because I was working a lot, and my wife's a piano player, and she was working a lot. So in New York, it, I mean, I like to play all kinds of music. So I play, you know, free jazz at the Knitting
yeah,
Factory, and then swing jazz at Eddie Condon's, and then play with singers, and then maybe the Blue Note or Vanguard every once in a while. But yeah, I was playing all the time, and it was like, okay, I'm making the scene, and I'm living the dream, but it was it's easy to burn out with all that.
absolutely. I hear you.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
So yeah, we had a baby at the time. We had a small child, and then this job with the WDR Big Band sort of just presented itself, and we thought, well, that would be great to live
it's more
in
security, right? Also, in
more
that sense.
security,
Yeah,
yeah, and also, they do projects, and you kind of know the schedule weeks in advance or months in advance, and to raise a kid, we thought, okay, let's try this. Let's move to Europe, move to Germany, and see how it works out. And the thing about New York, it's always there, and
yeah,
there's
yeah.
thousands of musicians, and everybody's doing their thing. So you can always go back. I mean, we thought, okay, if this doesn't work out in Germany, then we can just go back to New York. And I think the other thing that I saw was um, a lot of my heroes, my teachers and role models, they were maybe 20 or 30 years older than me, and they were doing the same gigs.
Yeah.
So I thought, okay, well, if I stay in New York, I'll probably be doing these same gigs in 20 years from now or
Yeah,
30 years from
$100
now.
still, or
Yeah.
50 sometimes, which is bizarre, man. It's like
Yeah,
crazy.
yeah. Back then it was like 50, 75,
Yeah,
100.
yeah,
$100 was a good gig.
it's insane.
And from what I've heard, it hasn't changed
Yeah,
a
yeah,
whole lot.
exactly.
Yeah.
That's
So, so we thought, yeah, let's try the European scene, and it worked out great. I mean, as you can imagine, I don't know if you've moved to the States or lived in the
I've been in New
States.
York, yeah, a lot, yeah. So it's
Mhm. Yeah, it's kind of a culture shock, like just different from Slovenia
oh
or
man,
different from Germany.
yeah,
And but yeah, I like that. I like the challenge, and I'm always um, I feel like home is sort of where you make it. Uh, I don't know that I could ever go back to my hometown of Louisville. You kind of look for people that have a similar background,
yeah,
maybe international background, or but still rooted in a hometown somewhere.
yeah.
Um, so yeah, we've enjoyed our time in Germany, and now I'm not with the WDR band anymore, but still working quite a bit. And
Where are you, by the way, in Cologne or near
Cologne, yeah,
Cologne? Oh, okay, yeah, that's a nice town. It's a nice
yeah,
city.
it's a nice town. Yeah,
Yeah, has like a kind of larger town vibe, but still it's small enough that
right.
uh, it's nice. Yeah, I love it. I like Cologne.
Yeah, and it's similar to where I grew up in Louisville, which is, like a medium-sized city on a famous river.
Yeah,
And in Louisville, it's the Ohio River. Here, it's the Rhine River.
exactly.
Um, so yeah, I feel comfortable. I'm outside of Cologne, but yeah, great music scene, a lot of
Yeah,
musicians, nice music school. and also the radio, WDR seems to provide a lot of projects and work for musicians.
Yeah, it's important. Yeah.
Mm.
How did you in Louisville? How did you encounter jazz then? And I guess before moving to New York, you started to play jazz there, right? I mean, how did all
Right.
that happen?
Uh, in Louisville, I guess the biggest protagonist there was this guy, Jamie Aebersold. He lived
Oh
across the
yeah.
river in
Okay. So that's
Indiana.
the Jamie Aebersold who did
The
all the.
Jamie Aebersold, yeah.
Oh yeah. Okay. So because yeah, I saw that you actually like worked on many of these kind of backing
Play
track
along,
projects,
yeah.
play-alongs.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Ah, okay.
So I met Jamie. Actually, I think the first jazz I heard, he came to my junior high school. So I was 13, 14 years old, and he came with a band and he was playing electric bass.
Wow.
He's a good bass player. He
No.
used to work as a bass player, but I mean, his main instrument is alto saxophone, but he came with a quintet. And at that point, I was playing electric bass in sort of a crazy fusion band trying to play Mahavishnu and, just, way over our heads. But, we really wanted to play loud and fast. And so Jamie came and they played, Song for My Father and Blue Bossa and Freddie Freeloader and these kind of tunes. I thought, oh, that's kind of strange, but I kind of like it, and so over the years, first I went to Jamie's workshops as a student, maybe when I was 16. I went to the first one, and Rufus Reed was the bass instructor.
Okay.
So I met Rufus, and Jamie he always had a good blend at his workshops. He had some educator types like college professors, but then he would bring in players. So I remember the first workshop, there was Woody Shaw
Mm.
and Joe Henderson and Rufus and uh, yeah,
Heavyweights.
Slide Hampton. Yeah, and
Yeah.
just the real cats on the scene. And that music, it blew me away. I knew, oh man, this is amazing, incredible energy. I don't know what they're doing, but I want to learn how to do it. So yeah, that sort of started me on the path to learn jazz. And there was a scene in Louisville, this guitar player who I'm sure you know, Jimmy Rainey, lived there.
Sure. I didn't know that. Wow. Okay.
Yeah, he
Wow. I
came
love Jimmy. Yeah.
from, he grew, yeah, grew up in Louisville, and then later on, I think he was kind of burned out in New York or Europe, and he moved back to Louisville to
Oh,
get back on track. So I got to play with Jimmy quite a bit,
wow.
and for me, that was like also the like hearing jazz from a legend. That was one of my first
Wow.
jazz legend experiences to hear this kind of masterful bebop guitar playing. And yeah, so I was working around Louisville because there weren't many bass players, there weren't many jazz bass players. So I was getting to play with a lot of really good players.
Mm.
And eventually, everybody said, well, if you really want to play jazz, you have to move to New York. So in 1980, I just put everything in the car and drove to New York and
Oh
moved
man.
in with
How
some
was that like
friends.
when you came? I mean,
Oh, it was it was great, that I had a couple of friends there, so I could sleep in their apartment. And yeah, I just had the bass and a suitcase and some stuff in the car. And yeah, I remember driving through New Jersey and then sort of coming up on the skyline of New York and seeing, oh my God, this is really the city.
that's the deal. Yeah.
Um, and yeah, I remember the night I got there after driving all day from Louisville, it was like a 12-hour drive or something. And finding the apartment and going up, and they were having a jam session. I thought, oh man, this is because in Louisville there were only a few bass players and small scene, and I thought, okay, you know, I'm ready to go. But then when you get to New York, there are
Yeah.
hundreds of bass players, and they all play like pretty good or really good. And yeah, I remember going out on my, the first night. not that night when I arrived, but the next night I went out on the town and heard Ron Carter, Red Mitchell, Reggie Workman just walking around in the
The clubs, yeah,
village. Yeah. And
amazing. Yeah.
for me, it was like, oh, well, this is the jazz scene. So um, yeah, it blew my mind, but also, I got to play a lot with my friends, and then I eventually hooked up with some, more some older players who, put up with me and would call me for gigs. So
How did these gigs happen then? Like that, how did you get the first gigs? I mean, and starting to play and
yeah, the the two guys I was living with, a drummer named Mark Plank and a tenor player named Tim Whalen, um, they were hanging. They had been in Brooklyn for a year or so, and there were all these little gigs where you could just go and play, and they would pass the hat. So I would make,
mm,
$4 one night, $6 the next night, and I remember when I got my first steady gig, it was like a Thursday night, and I'd have to drive up to Nyack, New York. I had a car, and that gig paid $25. But after 6 months or so,
yeah,
I started to get, more and more. I was playing all the time, playing sessions, and then these little jam session gigs, and then I kind of fell into musicians who worked more and got better gigs and played concerts, and so that's really the way things happened. I was working a lot, not making much money, but because I was working
yeah,
almost every night, I made enough to live on at
yeah.
that
It was not
first.
so expensive yet. Then that's
No,
a huge
we had
difference. Yeah.
an apartment for three people for $400 in Brooklyn, like
Man,
Atlantic Avenue, Brooklyn Heights.
wow.
So, and playing just, it was sort of the jazz dream, just playing jam sessions all day and then going to these little gigs at night or going out to hear people at night, which was an amazing, it was a lesson every night.
Yeah, everyone is alive still, right? I mean, all the greats were still in New York and playing actually, and
Yeah, a
more
lot
or
of them.
less a lot of them.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah,
It's incredible. Yeah,
yeah, it's incredible.
oh,
So
amazing.
that's how I started out in New York, and then eventually I got some recording gigs. I played some movie soundtracks and commercial jingles.
Oh yeah,
So
you
then,
caught those as well. Yeah, yeah.
yeah, and the thing I noticed also in Louisville, and then when I moved to New York, all the older cats said, "Oh yeah, the scene is terrible. You should have been here 10 years ago." Then it was, you know, you should have been here in the 60s. That's when it was really happening. Or, in the 80s when I moved to New York, they said, yeah, the 70s was really happening, and uh, so I did move to New York right at the start of the like digital era where,
Yeah,
people were starting to buy DX7s and they had a, little Alesis drum machine or, so that was sort of the end, I think, of the commercial
yeah,
recording scene, but it was still happening, and there was still work to be had in the studios in the '80s. Uh,
yeah. It's amazing. Those guys. I mean, I remember I did this talk with Randy Brecker, and he said like, they were doing, an album a day or two with Michael, and then six jingles or whatever. It's just like
right?
in the 70s. I mean, that must have been like,
Yeah,
man,
that's insane. I mean,
crazy.
Randy is, he was a legend in New
Yeah,
York, and those guys, Michael and Will Lee and Don Grolnick and all these incredible players. I think they were just in the studio every day, all
yeah,
day.
yeah.
Um, and
Amazing.
then I know Randy now, he's traveling the world, he's moving around and, going to different countries. And he said, yeah, I never got to do that in the 70s. I was stuck in the studios.
Yeah, amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah. How did you get all these? I mean, what was your first major gig like? Because I saw you on your website. Like I said, I have, CDs with Charlie Byrd, and I want to ask you about those guys, and Ken we mentioned already before, and
Mm.
Frank Vignola and all these incredible guitarists, especially. I mean, not Ken, but then I saw the list of the names you played with in New York in the '80s, and it's almost like who's who, from Brecker to even George Benson is listed there, and like some
Right.
other guys.
Yeah.
Like, how did all these gigs happen, and what was the first major gig that kind of you got, or
Yeah. Um, I didn't really get to experience like what Eric Rivas, he played with Betty Carter and for a
yeah,
few years. I didn't have those gigs where I played with one band leader for years and years, although um, yeah, I'd say my first better paying or more high profile gig was with the saxophone player Bob Wilbur, who was
mm,
a well-known swing player.
yeah,
And that led to other gigs. It led to more studio gigs and things like that. And then um, I worked a lot with a guy named Lauren Schoenberg,
oh yeah,
who's
sure,
a
yeah,
big, he's like a big band
big band guy,
expert. He had
yeah,
a great band back then, and Mel Lewis often played with that band. So I got to play with Mel quite a
oh
bit.
wow, okay,
And so through Mel, I got to sub for Dennis Irwin at the Vanguard and
Woo. That must
played.
have been amazing, right? That band then,
Well, yeah, it was incredible.
the '80s one. That's
Um,
like,
but excuse me, I didn't have one gig that was like, oh, I worked with this person for 5 years and then the career was set. I was just sort of moving from gig to gig to gig. And I think because I could read pretty well and I knew a lot of tunes,
100%.
thanks to people like Jimmy Rainey and Jamie Aebersold, I learned a lot of standards back in Louisville. And I think I just had the uh, sort of the courage to always take a gig, or say, oh yeah, I can play that standard, even if I'm not 100% sure. Um, yeah, and then I think most players in New York in the 80s would agree, if you're in New York and you can play good, if you know tunes and standards and you can read well, then you're going to start to work all the time.
Mm,
And I was just lucky that I got in different scenes, the studio scene and this big band scene. I worked with Toshiko
yeah,
Akiyoshi and this band called the American Jazz Orchestra with John Lewis conducting the band and Mel Lewis on drums. And just, yeah, through gigs like that, I just kept working and the level got higher and higher as I went along. Um, and my main goal in New York was to stay in New York because a lot of people would go to New York and then they get a gig on the road, like traveling with the Buddy Rich band or
yeah,
the yeah Woody Herman band or Lionel Hampton big band, and they'd go out for 4 months and be on the road, but they wouldn't be in New York. So I always tried to. Was still going on the road, but I really tried to stay in New York and yeah, make the scene happen for me there.
yeah. Did you already, like in the '80s, travel to Europe as a jazz musician, as a touring musician, or?
Um, no, I think it was later in the 80s, and I came to Europe with Toshiko Akiyoshi's big band,
Okay.
and then with Louis Belson's big band, and that's how I met the manager of the WDR Big Band
Okay.
through Louis Belson, and then he really wanted Louis to come and be a guest, and he said, "No, by the way, our bass player just retired, so you can come,
That's a
come with
coincidence,
Louis."
man. Okay.
Yeah, coincidence.
Wow.
Yeah, luck.
Luck. Yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting.
And I had been aware of the WDR Big Band from Mel Lewis because he was coming over as a guest a lot, and he'd go over to play in Cologne for a couple of weeks, and I remember I was playing a steady Sunday brunch with Mel and paid $75
Woo.
and in quartet. So, Mel would go away for a couple of weeks, then he'd come back and he'd say, there's this great band in Cologne. He'd have new clothes and, it's talking about how great the radio band was. And I kept thinking, oh man, I gotta somehow get over and play with this band at some point.
Interesting.
So that was maybe my first indication that, there was a world outside of New York and it might be possible to,
Yeah,
tap into that.
interesting. How did you start playing with Charlie Byrd? Because I know I think I have like 2 CDs or 3 CDs with him that
Yeah,
you
I
did,
played,
and
I think there are two. I think,
with one is
uh,
with Scott Hamilton and the other one with Herb Ellis, I think as well, right?
right.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
And
Okay.
Larry Coryell. Yeah.
Yeah,
So
that's a
there's
beautiful
one
record. Yeah,
like the return of the great guitars.
yeah.
And that was done in the 90s. So I was actually in Germany and Concord Records called and said, we've got this thing with these guitar players, and maybe you're the guy who can hold it all together, which I don't know if I did, but
That's a nice
uh,
record. I like
yeah,
it.
it's a real honor to play with those guys. And I'd played with Larry Coryell before
Oh wow,
in the
really?
80s. Um, and we did a couple of tours with this French piano player, Claude Bolling. So
Oh
Larry
yeah,
played
sure.
like
Oh,
a guitar suite. Um, but yeah, the first time with Charlie Byrd was with Scott Hamilton and just, yeah, beautiful kind of bossa
yeah,
style Latin jazz music. And Scott has this flowing sound and
yeah,
great tone. And yeah, Charlie's got his special style, nylon string.
yeah,
And
yeah. Exactly. I mean, he was very different.
yeah, he's different. Yeah.
Yeah, very unique.
Uh, which is, it was funny later on, maybe 8 or 10 years later to record this great guitars record and then have Herb Ellis, who's the big swinger,
Yeah,
and Mundell Lowe was on the record, and then Larry Coryell, who's kind of the wild card.
exactly. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Very interesting. All different sounds completely. Yeah, I was just listening yesterday to the duo they did. Herb Ellis and Joe Pass, Two for the Road. I was
Oh, nice.
teaching one student, like I was like, man, you have to listen to this. It's just like how they comp each other, and it's like, man, it's so good.
Right.
The playing and such good player, Herb.
Yeah. Yeah. Another guitar player I worked with a lot in New York was Jack Wilkins. I don't know if you're aware.
Really, of
Yeah. Yeah.
course. We were planned to do this interview, like, and then he passed away. Like we were talking like a month before he passed, like
Oh, wow.
2 years ago, and I have his CDs. He was such an underrated player. Did
Yeah.
so
He
many
was kind
great
of
records, and
under the radar. Yeah.
yeah,
I mean, he made some incredible albums also with the Breckers and
yeah, and Dijonette on it, and all these guys, like
yeah.
beautiful.
And I remember Jack, I mean, he was an amazing guitar player and also had tons of chops, but he always was talking about, yeah, I think Benson's faster than me. I think, I don't know how he does that, and McLaughlin, I think he can play faster than me. So he had this thing about, sort of the guitar player gunslinger,
Yeah, yeah,
who's the fastest?
man. Interesting. But he was a great guitarist. Yeah,
Oh,
it's
beautiful
amazing.
musician. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. You became like I was aware of that, like almost like quite an important player in the Concord Jazz label, right? Because you did so
Right.
many records for that label. Also, your first debut album.
Right. Yeah, this album, Tale of the Fingers,
Yeah, yeah,
which
yeah,
I
yeah.
did, yeah, right before I moved to Germany. So it was also kind of a decision. Well, I made this, Concord was a big label at the time,
Yeah.
and I'm making this record, but then I'm leaving New York and going to Europe. But uh, I mean, you've made a lot of records too, and a record is just sort of a snapshot of,
Where you are, yeah, in the
yeah,
lifetime.
where
Yeah,
you are. Yeah.
yeah,
And yeah, that was a good look. When I've listened back to that record, not recently, but a while back, and I thought, man, this sounds like New York in the 90s, like everything's a little too fast and a little bit nervous and edgy, great players on the record.
Terry
Terry
Clark,
Clark,
man, come on.
yeah,
It's like,
yeah.
wow.
Bill Mays and this
Yeah,
an alto player named Andy Fusco.
yeah.
Yeah. And I did a tour with Terry Clark back in December. So just a
Really?
couple of months ago. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. He's
He's still playing,
83.
actually.
Yeah.
Yeah.
83 sounds
Wow.
great. Sounds like he always did.
Wow.
Um,
Yeah, I love his stuff with Jim Hall, man. I mean, he was like the drummer for Jim, right?
right. Yeah.
Like
Perfect,
that's,
perfect foil for Jim.
yeah. Did
Yeah.
you ever get to play with Jim, by the way? Speaking of Jim.
No, at some point, I think I called Jim and left a message on his machine. I was just in New York, you get kind of like, well, I'll just call the guy, and tell him I need to play with him. So I called Jim Hall, left a message on his answering machine, Mr. Hall, this is John Goldsby, and I love your music. I love it. And it would be so wonderful if I got the chance to play with you. And he actually called me back.
Really? Oh
Said, "Oh, it
man.
was very nice of you to call. I've really got my players that I like to work with, and but if something ever comes up, I'll keep you in mind," which is much nicer than
Yeah.
it could have gone. He's
Wow.
uh, at that time, I think Steve Laspino was playing a lot with Jim, and Steve is a fantastic bass player. Um, but yeah, I have a lot of those moments in New York where I just called somebody up. Now, today's style with social media, it's a
It's
little
different. Yeah.
different.
Yeah.
But back then, all we had was a telephone and an answering machine, or you go see somebody in person and try and. So it was much more a pure way of getting hold of somebody,
Yeah.
just to call and say, "Oh, I love your music. Please let me know. I'd love to play with you," and then see what happens.
Yeah.
I
Interesting.
remember I heard an interview with George DeVivier, uh, and he was talking about he wrote Coleman Hawkins a letter
Wow.
because George, was a young guy, and Hawk was, one of the greatest tenor players of all time. He wrote him a letter and said, "I love the way you're playing, and I'd love to play with you sometime. Please let me know if you have anything that and it
Wow.
worked for him. Eventually Coleman Hawkins called George to do a gig, and so I thought, okay, well, that's another way to do it. I'm going to write Sonny Rollins a letter, which I did.
Really? Oh
Yes,
man.
I wrote Sonny a letter. I never heard back from him, but I had a musicians union telephone book, which they had in New York at the time, and his address was in there. I thought, oh, look, there's Sonny's address, and I'll just write to him and say, so uh, I think that's something I try and tell my students, you have to actively,
Be proactive. Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, you can't be a jerk about it and bother people, but you can, tell people that you're around and,
Yeah.
you'd like to play their music, or you'd like, you go hear them play, and at least they're aware of you,
Yeah. Yeah. In the 80s, I remember I played with Drew Grass quite a lot, and we did this interview then, and Drew said like when he came in the 80s to New York, people put his name and the phone number in like, little black books or whatever. And
Mhm.
then in the bass departments, there were like names like above that, like, Mark Johnson, Eddie Gomez. And he was like, man, I will never get gigs. There's like, why would someone call me if there's like Mark Johnson and Eddie Gomez? But obviously, those guys were working as well. So
Sure.
then
Yeah.
they call you, and it's like,
Yeah.
but just this thought, like you're a young cat coming to New York, and it's like Reggie Workman is there, Richard Davis is there, who are like, it's like, all
Right.
these guys, like, dude, what am I doing here?
Right.
It's
Yeah. Eventually in
scary.
New York, I got a I got a hotel gig, but with a jazz trio with this piano player, Ted Rosenthal, very
Yeah,
good
sure. I know
player,
that. Yeah.
yeah, and a tenor player named Bob Kindred. So this was actually Donald Trump's first hotel in New York. It was the Grand Hyatt. And back then he was just sort of a typical hotel kind of New York sleazy business guy. But who would have thought?
Yes,
Uh,
exactly.
so we got a trio gig, and it was a steady gig, 3 nights a week, playing 7 hours a night, and we just played standards, you know. And so, but we could also sub out. So we would, so the gig would start at 5 in the afternoon and go to midnight, and sometimes I'd play 5 to 8 and then go play a different gig down in the village or wherever. Or sometimes, I would show up late and then start the gig and play 8 to 12 or whatever.
Mm.
So I had all these bass players who would fill in for me and sub for me. And eventually I had a list of about 75 bass players who I knew pretty much all the bass players, and I knew they could all play a 7 hour gig with no charts. Um, that was sort of the New York thing. You had to know a lot of standards and be able to play also with no drums, just play tunes all night and tune after tune. Um, but it's like this list you were talking about, like Drew Gress is, you know, you have everybody from Eddie Gomez
Yeah.
to, your friend who lives down the street. Um, yeah, and it was just a situation. I never could not find a bass player to sub. There's always somebody who could fill in.
It's amazing. Yeah.
Yeah.
Did you do before Tale of the Fingers? Did you do band leading stuff as well, or was like gigs and or not really?
Not not really. I
Hmm.
I was basically just doing sideman
Simon
stuff,
stuff. Yeah.
and hadn't really composed many tunes. I think I was just so busy trying to keep up with this person's music and that music and the other person's music that I never thought, well, I should go get a gig. Also
Yeah.
in New York, I wasn't uh, a hot commodity as a band leader.
Yeah. Yeah. Interesting. How?
One thing,
Yeah. Sorry. Yeah.
I just had a thought about the New York thing, like showing up at a gig and just playing standards all night. When I moved to Germany, it was sort of a big shock because in Germany, there were a lot of original tunes,
Yeah.
and people, I started going to gigs and they would have a chart, and the gig would start at 8 and they'd say, okay, let's meet at 4 in the afternoon. Yeah, but the gig starts at 8. In New York, if you show up at 5 minutes till 8, you're still on time.
Yeah.
As long as you can plug in and make sure everything's set up, you hit at 8, no charts, no problem. But then moving to Germany, it's like, well, I have my music and my original music, and we need to go over this music, uh, and it's still that way. Almost every gig I play, I don't know about in Slovenia,
Yeah.
but
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah.
you get there early and you
Absolutely.
have
Yeah.
the run through rehearsal, and you want to make sure that everybody knows
Yep.
this is the tune, this is how it starts, this is the ending. Let's make sure everybody's rehearsed. And then you
Yeah.
go have dinner, and then you go do the gig. So it's a long affair.
Afternoon, evening. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's no standard gigs. I mean, in a sense, like in New York, that when people play like in a small bar, a duo, or in a restaurant, like you said, 7 hours. At least in Slovenia, there are like hardly. When I was like 20, I played a brunch gig in a hotel, like a five-star hotel, every
right.
Sunday with a bass player, and that was a great experience because just 3 hours
Yeah,
playing standards, learning tunes. Like, let's do this. Well, never played it. Okay, let's try it
yep.
on the spot, playing the head. And nowadays, it's hardly any of these gigs. I don't know about Germany, but here in Slovenia, like that young guitarist could play like in a hotel for 3 hours. It's so
Yeah.
rare compared to New York, I guess. I mean,
Back then in the 80s in New York, there was a big duo scene, so that I got to hear a lot of like Gene Bertoncini and Michael Moore. I took
Ooh,
a lot
yeah.
of lessons with Michael Moore. Um, or I'd go to a restaurant, not even a jazz club, but a restaurant and hear Hank Jones and Ron Carter. People would be eating dinner and talking, and then they're playing this beautiful
Yeah,
music. Or
it's incredible.
yeah,
Uh,
so to me, that's sort of I think that's in my DNA that you can go play a gig even if people are drinking or laughing or talking or having dinner. If it's not too loud, it's still fun. It's still music, and you play standards, and basically there's a lot of freedom in those kind of gigs because you can play anything. You
exactly.
play anything you want, experiment, and if somebody doesn't like it, they just talk louder.
Yeah, Europe is completely different in this sense. Europe is
Yeah,
more like Germany. I mean, I played quite a lot in Germany. It's like concert oriented, gig starts
right,
at 8:30, maybe two sets, one set at 10. Okay, that's it.
right.
And
Everybody sits and
yeah, quiet, it's like
stares.
yeah,
Yeah,
people above 60, usually 80% of them, which is great
right,
because they buy CDs. So,
right.
it's a different vibe. Yeah, it's funny. Uh, John, I wanted to ask you about one record that I really love, which is Cologne, that you did with Bill and Peter Erskine.
Yep.
Because there's one version of Danny Boy there, and your bass solo on that one that's so good, man. It's
Oh,
so
thank you.
so melodic. And like, what's your story with Peter and with Bill actually as well? I mean, both two guys they're giants, and like
Yeah.
such a nice chemistry that trio had.
Yeah, Bill started as the main conductor with the WDR Big Band this exact same time I started.
Okay.
So I didn't really know Bill. I knew him from, well, he's the professor at Rochester.
Yeah,
Um, but yeah, Bill's brilliant. He's like got a big brain. And as far as his piano playing, he's checked out everybody. He's like an encyclopedia of influences and harmony. And he's really into like Claire Fisher, that
yeah, sure.
style of composing and playing. And so then I had never played with Peter Erskine until he came as a guest with the WDR Big Band. And so then I was, of course, intimidated because he's Peter Erskine. And he was very cool about, you know, playing with me. I think he likes playing with me, and he, recognized how we could fit together. And yeah, so that album just came about as a byproduct of one of the big band projects we were doing over
Okay.
here. And we just, had a couple of free days and thought, okay, we can record this
Beautiful.
trio album. And yeah, Peter's such a great musician. Uh, he goes beyond just being a drummer who's going to play some nice groovy beats, and he's always listening to what the other people are doing and responding to that.
Yeah.
So I think that's, the highest compliment I can give him is he goes beyond just being a drummer. Of course, he can do all the slick drum things, uh, but yeah, he's really a participant in the trio sound. So that lifts everything up.
Yeah. Such a composer as well. Really good composer. I mean, like
Yeah,
composed
yeah,
some nice tunes.
right, definitely.
Yeah.
And I just heard Peter about 2 weeks ago. I was in London for a little mini vacation, and I went to Ronnie Scott's and heard Peter with Kevin Hayes, Scott Colley,
Woo.
and a Danish alto player named Benjamin Kopel.
Copel. Oh yeah, yeah, sure. I know. But
Yeah, yeah.
beautiful.
And it was just, yeah, it was wonderful. And yeah,
Beautiful.
he's still playing great. Sounds good.
Yeah, yeah. He's really cool. Uh, what are you doing now? So you're retired, and what are your plans? I mean, like,
Oh,
do you have some gigs coming up? And will you do some more band leading maybe or stuff like that? I mean, what's your schedule for
Uh,
this year, let's say, for as a
yeah,
musician?
well, I played a nice gig last night with an Italian tenor player named Max
Okay,
Iannota,
sure. Yeah.
great player. So that was really fun. I've just got little one-off gigs, which is good for me now. I don't take every gig that people call
Yeah.
me for, but I'm kind of picking and choosing. I'm working some with Hubert Nuss, a piano player in
Yeah.
Cologne, and two guitar players, Bruno Mueller and Paolo Morello. We're doing a duo or a trio concert in a couple of weeks.
Beautiful.
And then I've got a band, or I'm working with a band with Stefan Bauer on vibraphone, Terry Clark on drums, and Matt Halpern on tenor saxophone.
Oh, beautiful. Nice.
So we have an album that's coming out, and who knows, how putting together a tour is a
Oh, yeah. It's
massive
interesting.
amount of work. Yeah.
Yeah. Interesting. Oh, so you're
Yeah, so
busy. Good, man.
that's my
That's
my plan for the future is just, as they say, keep playing jazz till the money runs out. And
Yeah, don't
but
start band leading then, man.
I know.
It's like,
But that's, you ask about my groups. I'm not the greatest booking agent for myself, so I'll have to see if somebody calls me and they have a good offer. Um, I of
why
course
not?
would
Yeah.
love to play.
Yeah.
I'm doing the Sligo Jazz Workshop this summer,
In
which is a
Ireland.
nice,
Oh,
in
man.
Ireland. Yeah, that's a
Woo.
great.
Beautiful.
I've done that many years now. I think 15 years or something.
Wow. Yeah, just Ireland. So nice. I mean, yeah, I would go there
Yeah,
just, the food and the landscape, man. It's so nice there. I love it.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Incredible.
What have you got coming up?
Oh, I have one tour in October with Matt Maneri, the viola player
Oh,
in New
nice.
York. That
Yeah.
should be fun. And yeah, like every gig now and then. I mean, we have a 3-year-old daughter, and my wife is pregnant, and we're expecting a baby in June. So I'm kind of
Yeah,
more or less teaching only and trying to not play too much now because
right.
to be home with the kids and stuff
Yeah,
like
it's
that. And
important.
yeah. It's just, and carrying the amplifier of 25 kilos, I'm getting a bit like, not that I'm complaining, but it's sometimes it's just like, oh,
Right.
so I'm picky as well. I'll put it like that with gigs. And
Well, that's good. Yeah,
yeah, I mean, I teach, so I love teaching. So at least I can choose my gigs. That's important. So
right.
yeah.
Well, I appreciate you getting in touch and
Yes.
hanging out, and
Thanks for finding the time as well. If